something that actually we were just talking about, and I think is pretty prevalent in all of bodybuilding, is an underdeveloped posterior chain. So back and hamstrings, even glutes. A lot of times I think we focus too much on the things we can see in the mirror. So it's easy to focus on quads, it's easy to focus on arms. It's something you see all the time. But something that I've put a lot of time and effort in is to my back and hamstrings. I know that we've talked about back on here before, what I've done for that. Hamstrings kind of go hand in hand with that. So lots of heavy deadlifts, lots of pulls and stuff like that also include lots of hamstrings. So the other thing I do a lot of is curling. I think curls do a lot for your hamstrings. It's developed my hamstrings the most of any movements. I think the straight stretch movements are great, like RDLs, but there's a time and a place for those, and the best ham builders are curls. So you want full developed legs, you gotta get big hamstrings, you gotta get big adductors, and that's what's gonna happen today. WD-40. Yeah, so for me, I really focus a lot on the stretch in calves because it's something, your calf gets worked all day long, and a lot of times it's just with the push. So you have to focus on the stretch, but you don't want to let off of the stretch. So a lot of times people in the bottom, they actually let the muscle in their foot take all the weight, and they let their calf relax. What I'm doing is making sure that my foot is flexed so that the stretch stays in the calf, stretching it for a long period of time in the bottom, helping it grow in return. And the best ham builders are curls. So you want full developed legs, you gotta get big hamstrings, you gotta get big adductors, and that's what's gonna happen today.
It's humid.
Like, so kind of with the calves, that's my activation, just getting blood through the hamstrings. But then as I get into a curl here, I just started super light. I'm moving up 2 or 3 on the stack each time. As you see, I'll do 4 or 5 warm-up sets here before I actually attack it. I'm getting ready to go into my top set now. I've already done 5 sets to warm up, so my hamstrings are good and ready to fire. And now it's time to actually put in some work and tear the muscle down.
Libby on the spot.
What's up? Let's go. Come on, all the way. Good.
Being an arm wrestle with Brett, we have so many more machines, man. So before this, going into my pro debut, I got to train at arm wrestle for about 4 weeks solid. But before that, in Wyoming, I was very limited on my equipment selection. So this new body, this new physique that I bring to stage next year will be a good representation of what a gym with all the pieces of equipment that I want, how I've been able to develop my physique from that. So something that has been very beneficial for me is how many hamstring pieces of equipment we have. Back in Wyoming, I pretty much only did leg curls on one machine because that was the only one that felt good. Now I have 4 or 5 different options, as well as a good leg press for hamstrings, and I think that'll make a big difference on stage. Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I think that something that you have to take into consideration with your hamstrings is how much you're getting into them when you train quads. A lot of people, they're doing quad movements, but they're using their hamstrings to cheat or try to get more weight. So you have to take that in consideration on if you're doing a hamstring day separate from your quad day, on what kind of workload it can withstand. I think if you split it up, obviously the hamstrings can handle more work. And I think that a big factor to how much work it can handle is gonna come down to how good your connection is. So I don't need a crazy amount of work because I have crazy good connection and I can really get them to fire. But in the beginning, you might have to do more reps, more volume to help build that connection, and then in turn, you'll have to do less curls later on. I think the biggest difference between the curls in seated and in lying is seated is going to completely eliminate the glute. If you are glute dominant or you have a lot of glute strength, it might be best for you to start in the seated, really fire those hamstrings up, pre-exhaust them, and also get your mind to muscle connection good so that when you go to the laying, you don't use your glutes. I can start on either one because I have good mind to muscle connection in my hamstrings, but both are going to develop you a little bit different, right? So lying, you're going to get a bigger stretch in the hamstring. You're going to get it elongated a little bit more. In the seated, we're going to get a better contraction. And I'm going to do a little bit of a hold here at the end, as you'll see in the tempos, that I'm really contracting and holding that contraction to help volumize the muscle in that sense. Versus in the elongated version, I'm really focusing on holding the stretch on the line and then contracting fast. Alright guys, so you saw me do that top set. I got a little partials at the end, but I wasn't getting the full contraction I really wanted. So I'm gonna do a little back off here. What I'm gonna really focus on is a big squeeze and contraction in the bottom. So you'll see I'll have about a 2-3 second hold in the bottom. Then I'm gonna come out, go back into the curl, 2 or 3 second hold in the bottom. What that's gonna do is really help develop that squeeze, mind to muscle connection, and really hold blood in the muscle, finish it off here. Then we're gonna go to some leg press.
Do you recommend that for people who need to develop this connection?
Yeah, so anytime that I think you have a poor mind to muscle connection with a muscle, I think two things that are really gonna help is squeezes and volume. So, you know, if you have bad connection with your triceps, do 200 reps for 2 or 3 weeks and then start going into some squeeze reps. Make 20 or 50 of those reps, really hard squeezes with contractions, holding the contraction, and really focus on building that neural connection. Yeah, so I mean, with me having such good mind to muscle connection, I'm only feeling it really in my hamstrings. Glutes have it slightly from the stretch here, just getting some blood in them. But now I'll go into a straight legged deadlift. This will kind of finish me off, especially with me being as big as I am. I'm gonna end up getting a low back pump here from doing a hip hinge workout. Because of that, it's kind of just the finisher for me. So once I get a low back pump, I turn into a big sissy and it's over for me. So we'll go into this, we'll finish off, and then go rest and eat.
Definitely. Pretty much wrapped up in about 20 minutes. When is that map gonna go up? Yeah.
A couple of reasons I do that. So I kind of lock in, I don't go a full extension all the way back. Because of the low back pumps, it will pump me up quicker. So I'm trying to eliminate that until I get to the top sets. The other thing is what I'm doing is I'm flexing my glutes and then I'm only letting my hamstring stretch. So again, I'm trying to keep the glute out of the movement, only letting the hamstring really do the moving and the stretching. Glutes are gonna wanna take over on this. They're very dominant when it comes to deadlifting. Try to keep your knees locked. You can let them loose just so that they don't feel tension on the actual knee joint itself. But you want to keep your legs as straight as possible. That's going to keep most of it in the hamstring versus letting it transfer into the glute.